trying to film and edit the opening for like days, and they all look really awkward.
So here's my story. My educational journey started when I attended one of the top elementary schools in my city back then. The school promised to keep the size of the student population small, so every class would only have 30 students, which was a fairly small number in the Chinese context. But by the time school started, we had 34 students sitting in the classroom. Why were there 4 extra students? Obviously, the school accepted 30 students as planned, but then 4 more students somehow managed to get in through the back door. Through the back door, or 走后门, is a Chinese phrase referring to admission exercises like bribing the principal, or making donations, or having a personal relationship with someone in power. For my 6 years at the school, my peers and I kept guessing which 4 students were here through the back door. Was it the girl who got really bad grades? Was it the boy with ADHD? And then I thought, it must be the girl who stole my eraser because I disliked her so much and I secretly wished that she didn't belong here. Until recent years, when I have long stopped caring about this puzzle, my mom finally revealed it to me. It was me. I was one of the 4 students who were there through the back door. I was confused and I questioned my mom. I remember that students had to take the entrance test to get in, and I was always one of the top achieving students in my class. If I failed them, who else would pass? Today, when I reflect back to my confidence that I would never be one of the 4 extra students, I realized that behind my confidence, I was thinking, if I didn't deserve the spot to be in the best elementary school in the city, who else would? By implying that children who had bad grades or stole my erasers must be one of the 4, I was making the assumption that educational resources were allocated based on personal characteristics or efforts of individual students. In other words, my logic was the intelligent and the well-behaving ones deserve the best, and the lazy and the morally worse individuals don't deserve much. And if they did get something, that was because they cheated. This kind of value or this kind of logic established the sense of entitlement for children from affluent families. The pathway of them going to the best K-12 schools in town and then a selective college or maybe a secure job is as natural as water flowing down the stream. And that's because they're smart, they have won awards and honors, they have demonstrated leadership abilities and critical thinking abilities and all that fancy stuff. For those firm believers in meritocracy, little do they realize that being intelligent and exceptional is actually the result of having decent educational opportunities, but not the cause. Back to my story. If it wasn't because of me being smart, then what exactly got me into that school? My parents were born in a small village in China in the 1960s. Like most of Chinese people from their generation, they were poor and they didn't finish high school. In the late 90s, my maternal grandfather, along with my uncles, my aunts, and my parents, started their family business and made a leap from working class to the middle class. When I was 2, my parents purchased a house in the neighboring big city and enrolled me in various lessons like piano, calligraphy, painting. So for my elementary school entrance interview, I did pretty well, but I failed the social test for being too shy. My parents then utilized some social ties to arrange a dinner with the principal and then made some donations and finally got me enrolled in that school. You see, it's just a school, and I always thought that I went to that school because it was only 2 bus stops away from my home and it was convenient. I don't know where exactly my journey to the school started. Maybe it started when my parents moved to the school district, or maybe it was when they launched their own business. But what I'm sure about is that I didn't deserve my seat any better than other students in the same classroom with me, nor did I deserve it any better than any other child, those in other school districts, in rural villages, or from working class families. Previously, I mentioned that my family business was led by my maternal grandfather. To put it simply, my mother's side became rich, but my father's side remained poor. My cousins on my father's side went to schools in a small town. Only one of them ended up getting a bachelor's degree. The rest of them went to vocational schools. On the other hand, the cousins on my mother's side either moved to Hong Kong or immigrated to Canada or studied abroad in the US like me. Growing up, I hung out with my maternal cousins a lot more. We lived in the same neighborhood, we went to sister schools, we share the same music taste, and we speak English. We can travel abroad together. Now I ask myself, what kind of music do my paternal cousins listen to? What jokes do they find funny? I don't know. The thing is, I never intended to find out. I simply reached an arbitrary conclusion that we don't share the same music taste and we would not laugh at each other's jokes. I had no interest in knowing them. I remember once I attended a webinar about anti-Asian hate, and the speaker said, the reason why there are hundreds of people listening to her talking is because she goes to Harvard, she's well educated, she's able to articulate her stories. In the meantime, the working class is deprived of space to voice their stories, their autonomous thinking, and their desire. So what exactly got me into Harvard? Just to clarify, I didn't go to Harvard for undergrad. That would be crazy competitive for me, but their master's program was within reasonable reach. I mentioned that my family was considered relatively affluent in China, but things became very different when I came to the US alone without parents. I didn't know anyone here, absolutely zero network. I barely spoke English, and I had no idea how the American society works. That means even though my family had financial capital, I lacked the cultural and social capital here in the US. I did not have full access to the resources that were available to my American peers, and my low English proficiency back then also limited my educational growth. But at the same time, the financial capital that my family provided for me, namely money, acted as a buffer that protected me from some of the disadvantages that I had. Like, I was able to afford a SAT tutor, and when I experienced racism and bullying, even though that was terrible, I was able to be educated about it and better react to it. There are countless little details in every step of my educational journey that led me to where I am right now. Not further, not closer, but this exact position. I made this video mainly for my own reflection. Like the name of the channel says, I'm trying to find out who I truly am through this reflection process. For those of you who are watching, I think it's worth trying to think about the class status of you and your family, what resources you had and did not have, whose voices did you miss along the way, and how everything led you to where you are right now. That concludes the first episode of Finding Chloe.